We love to laugh together, we love to worship together, and we love to talk together. So, but we are glad that you're here. Last week, if you weren't here, as she said, we kicked off the series called This Is the Way, and I'm so excited about this series because I really think it focuses all the energy where it needs to be, and that's on Jesus. And not just that, but kind of reintroducing who he is. Like, this is Jesus. In case you got a bad version of him somewhere, this is really what he's about. In the first week, we learned that he came to say, you are loved and valued. Just every single person. That's the whole message for him coming to earth, to break through every single barrier to say, hey, you are valued and you are loved no matter what your past is, no matter who you are, I love you. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that today because he has another message for you. But I don't know if you're like me. I hate getting in awkward situations where I don't know. Like if I can't add to the conversation, I hate being in those conversations. I want to sound smart all the time. And so I'm pretty good. As a pastor, I can make things up pretty good. And so I'm okay at it. I never do up here. I'm just saying in general, I'm decent at it. But my middle brother, his name's Michael. He goes by Mike now, which is weird because it's also my dad's name. And growing up, his name was Hootie, so that's what I know him as. But now he goes by, I'm Mike. I have a job and a 401k. I'm Mike. Anyway, that's what he gets for not being here today. Anyway, so he and my dad are like fix-it gurus. They can fix absolutely anything. They can take a car apart and put it back together. My dad is in the middle of actually doing that to two cars. Like, that's what he does for fun. Like, I'm going to take the transmission from this and put it in a 1969 Ford, and then this will work in here. The suspension from an Impala goes here. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. But they can fix everything. My dad, just to give you some idea, he took an old air conditioner at one point and turned it into a fountain for a koi pond that he dug at our house. Like, that's what my dad does. And I'm like, where's the oil go? Like, what? How do you? No, I can do some stuff. I don't, but I could, is what I'm saying. So I held the flashlight a lot. But they both have worked on tractors and big diesels and all kinds of things like that. And so they'll get in a conversation when we're hanging out as a family, and they'll just talk about, yeah, I was working on this DC-10 down there, and the radiator plug went down for the thing. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So I always default back to my Tommy boy and say, have you checked the inspects for the rotary line? Anybody remember? Yeah, Tommy's like, I have no idea what's going on, but have you checked the inspects? Anyway, that's my go-to line to kind of fit into the conversation, and they just look at me like I'm stupid. But I hate being in those conversations because I feel useless. Like, I have nothing to add to what's going on here. And I hate being in that situation. And I think that is actually a pretty good picture of where a lot of church people are at, where a lot of Christians are at. I don't really have a whole lot to add to this. I don't really have a whole lot of value inside of this conversation. You know, I don't know enough about the Bible. I haven't read it enough, or my past is this, and I don't know that I can be helpful to the kingdom. I don't even know what the kingdom is. Like, I can't be a part of this. And I think there's far too many people that believe that they don't have a part to play in this whole thing here on earth. And it's crazy how many people that I've come across that actually feel that way. People that I thought were pretty solid, they were confident in themselves. When it comes to the church and to Jesus, they are just not confident with who they are. And so Jesus came to send a different message because the enemy's done a really good job of tricking people into thinking that they're not useful, that they're not valuable inside of Christianity. And I've said this before, and I want to say it again. The goal of the enemy is not necessarily to make you bad. It's just to make you useless. Let's put it this way. An ineffective Christ follower is just as good as a mass murderer to the enemy. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not necessarily wanting you to go out and kill people, but if you just don't do anything with your faith, that's pretty much a win. That's good in his books, right? And so we've got to stop believing the lie that you somehow are not useful or valuable inside of God's kingdom, because you are. And that's the message that Jesus has come to say. It's the message that he's come to send to you. You are useful, and you are needed, and you are wanted. Not just that, like, yeah, sure, come along. He's like, no, I want you. I want you. You are useful, and I would like to use you. And so if you've ever felt the opposite of that, if you've ever felt useless when it came to church or all this Christian stuff, I want you to hear the message that Jesus has for you from the story that we're going to talk about today, and understand that you have a part to play in this. As you go through the Bible, and especially through the New Testament, it talks about the church being a body. And the body has different parts, and every single person has a part to play inside of this body. You're no different from anyone else. You're not excluded because of your past. You're not excluded because you're not as smart as so-and-so, or whatever the case may be. Every single person has a part to play inside of the church body. And that's the message that Jesus wants to send. And so we're going to look at Mark chapter 6. This is a very popular story. If you've been in church any length of time, you have heard this story. All four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, record this because it was such a momentous occasion. It's when Jesus fed the 5,000. And so again, if you've been in kids' church or church at all, you've heard this story. But I want to pull maybe some things that are really important for our church where we're at right now out of this. And I told my kids that I was going to call this the day that Jesus made some bread bussin'. But then I didn't say that in the first service, but you guys get that. If you don't know what that means, you're not as cool as me, so it's all right. Was that cool? All right, okay. Yeah, well, you don't throw a T-shirt's good, so. Snap, I'm sorry. I can't believe, yeah. As you can see, we really are family. So the feeding of the 5,000, I really like Mark's account of it. Again, it's found everywhere, but we're going to read Mark's account in chapter 6, verse 30, and it says this: the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. Then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. So they left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone. But many people recognized them and saw them leaving, and people from many towns ran ahead along the shore and got there ahead of them. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them. Again, we see the heart of Jesus right there, loved and valued. He was trying to get away. They hadn't even eaten. He was tired. You know, John the Baptist had just died. I mean, there was a lot going on at this point in time, and so Jesus is just trying to get away. And all the people see him. They run ahead of him. I see him like run down the shore, like, yeah, we're going to get there first. We're going. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll see you over there. And instead of Jesus getting mad and be like, I'm trying to get some time away from you guys, he sees him and he just has compassion on him. That's the heart. That's the loved and valued part of Jesus. And so again, if you've got a different version of Jesus, you got the wrong Jesus. He loves and values all people. And so they go ahead of him, and he steps out on the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. Late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat. But Jesus said, you feed them. With what, they asked. We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. How much bread do you have? He asked. Go and find out. They came back and reported, we have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then Jesus told the disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of 50 or 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up toward heaven, and blessed them. Then breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share. They all ate as much as they wanted. And afterward, the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. A total of 5,000 men and their families were fed. So again, I've heard this story probably before. There's a lot of great pieces to it. One of the things that Mark does not do is talk about where the bread and the fish comes from. He didn't put that in his account, but John actually does that for us. I love how different perspectives and different mindsets on how they saw situations. And so John kind of fills the gap here in his account in John chapter 6. It says, then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd? So we find out from John's account that the person who brought the food or where they got it from was actually this little boy who had a lunch, and he just brought it to the disciples. And if there's no other point to this whole story at this point, you are useful. This kid in a sea of 10,000 people, probably 12,000, 15,000, somewhere in there, is the reason that we have this story. Now we're going to focus on Jesus and what he can do, but you have to understand you are useful. Every part of you. And I want to invite you, if you're brand new to Simple Church, I want you to just kind of sit back and relax. Sip some coffee. Go take a lap around the building. I don't care what you do. No, I'm just kidding. I want you to stay in here. But if you consider yourself a part of the Simple family, I really want you to kind of dial in and get on the edge of your seat, because I think this is really important for where God is taking our church. He's got so many great ideas for this church, and it's things that I can't even understand how it's going to happen, but I know he has these plans. He is doing unique things here, and what I want to do is be ready and available for when he says go, for whatever it is. Whether it be deaf community, deaf ministry, we're talking through special needs ministry. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I think God is bringing. That's the surface of it, and we can't, unless we all understand that we are part of this and we're useful, we're not going to be ready for it. And I don't want to miss the opportunity. And so again, I want to talk kind of some family talk right here, and I want to share some really good news with you. I want to celebrate this with you because we have all of the volunteers we need. And we have all of the giving we need to move forward. That's fantastic. I always say with good news comes bad news. But I'm going to say with good news comes true news here. It's here, it's just not being used. It's available. It's just not willing right now. And what I really want to be careful of is I'm not up here to condemn or convict or do any of that. It is the job of the Holy Spirit to convict. So if he speaks to you today, listen. He has a lot of wisdom. He wants the best for your life. He wants the best for you. This is best for you. So listen to me. What I want to do is actually invite you. I want to invite you to be a part of the miraculous things that God is doing here. Because when you're not, you're missing out on it. I'm telling you right now. Okay? Here's what I know. You start talking about giving and serving in a church, and people get like this right here. Yep. He needs some new jackets. Here we go. He's got, they're like $23 on Amazon. All right, I'm doing okay. All right. I don't need your money. But I know what happens. We have this thing inside of us that locks us up. We're like, oh, they're going to ask us for stuff. Here we go. No, I want to invite you to be a part of what God is doing, because when you're not, you're missing out. You're missing out on being a part of the miracle. That's what is so crazy about this. And, in American church, 20% of the people serve and give. 20%. And they're supposed to be family. Like 20% of the people are giving. I was at a volleyball tournament this weekend, and I was talking to another parent, and her husband is an executive pastor. And she was saying they've really pressed into this. They've been around for a lot longer than us, and they have 55% of their church that's serving. And I was like, wow. And then I was like, I'm blown away that half of a church serves. That's telling. There's something there that we got to work on. But I think it's because we don't feel like we can bring anything to the table. I think we truly feel like I can't do this, or we have some kind of excuse that we come up with. And I would just say, what if this boy didn't give his meal that day? What if he didn't give his meal? Because in my mind, there's about 4 excuses that he could have come up with. There's 4 things that he could have said to say, it's not me. First of all, there was somewhere between 10 to 15,000 people there probably. You would think a young boy would be like, I'm sure one of these people will get it. Like they've probably got more food than me. They'll probably take care of it. And man, I've seen that so much that we have this mindset of someone else will take care of it. Someone else will do it. We drop our kids off and we're like, oh, someone's taking care of them, right? There's someone back there watching my kids. Cool. We just got to shove them off. But we don't think about, maybe I need to step in and be a part of that. I think the second thing he could have said is, I don't have much to give. Like, I just brought my lunch. I don't know that it'll do much. I don't have much to give. And again, I think that's what far too many Christ followers think. I don't have much to give. We see what God can do. We see what Jesus can do with our little, right? And the third thing I think he could have said is, listen, I'm not worthy to go up and talk to these guys. Who am I? I mean, the disciples were famous at this point. The disciples and Jesus, they were the rock stars of the time. They were out healing people. The Bible actually says they were just on a ministry tour. Like they were pretty famous at this point. And this boy could have said, I'm just this little boy. Like, they're not going to listen to me. Who am I to go talk to Jesus? Who am I to go talk to these disciples? And again, I think that's permeated in the church, that we think, who am I? My past says this. I'm not as smart as. I can't do as much as. And so we just say, well, I'm not really worthy to serve in this place or to be a part of this place. And the last thing, which I think is the saddest thing that he could have said, is, this is my food. They should have brought their own. I think that's a bad place to get to. And I think in the church sometimes, again, I'm not here to convict. I'm here to share the truth. That a lot of times that's kind of what we think. Like, my time's my time, my money's my money, my stuff is my stuff. Everyone else can take care of it. So let the Spirit work however He needs to work with that. But we see here that fortunately the boy decided to go ahead and say, here's my lunch, you guys can have it. Now, I want to talk about serving and giving for just a little while. And again, I know how this goes. I know that it kind of locks you up. But I'm just asking you to allow the Spirit to move a little bit because I think this is important. So I'm going to take a drink. Spirit didn't move enough. I'm going to drink again. Okay, now we're ready. There you go. Living water. I said from the beginning of Simple Church that we would never be the typical 20-80. And I meant that because we're family. I really mean that. Like, everyone should pull their weight in the family. That's how it should be. And so, again, I want to tell you this because I think you're missing out, actually. Not because I want something from you. I want you to experience what is happening here. And I want to read in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14, to really kind of, he drives this point home. Yes, the body has many parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not a hand, that does not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not an eye, would that make it any less part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, how would you hear? If your whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? I love the hyperbole here. I love how he really takes it far. Like, what if it was a whole eye? Then you couldn't eat anything. I love that thought process there. But our bodies have many parts. And God has put each part just where He wants it. How strange a body would be if it had only one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. So here's his point. Everybody's needed. Every part's needed. It even goes to say the ones that seem like they're the most pointless parts are actually some of the more important parts. I've said this before. Try to go walk through the day without having any thumbs. Like, I'm going to have to drink like this. It's going to look really weird, like a T-Rex or something. But everyone has a job to do. What, you think I won't do it now? All right. See, I spilled some. Because you weren't there to be my thumb. No, I'm just kidding. What a perfect illustration. I want you to, yes, I did nail that. Thank you. Point made. I'm going to move on. No. Welcome to Simple Church. But I want you to understand that we want and need you here. And again, not to use you or anything like that, but to for you to be a part of our family. We need you for that. And then as far as the giving goes, again, I want to release you guys from some stuff because I think that the church has been a kind of weird when you talk about money, and I know there's televangelists that have done a lot of wrong with a lot of money. So let me free you from this. You are not required to tithe to a church. Okay? We say that because a lot of people do it just because that's what they're supposed to do. Okay? And that's actually exactly what you shouldn't do. Jesus never said, tithe, give this money. Okay, that was an Old Testament principle that still existed, and then after Jesus died, there was a different message. It's all about generosity. Okay, that's the whole message behind giving, is to separate our heart from what it gets attached to, and that's typically money. So his whole goal is to separate us from the things that keep us tied down to this world and keep our mind off of him. So what he says, give generously. Give generously. That looks different. That's time, that's money, that's all these things. Just be generous. Just give generously, and you will experience a better life. Now, I'm not prosperity preaching, okay? I'm not saying if you give $10 today, you're going to find 20 somewhere. That's not how it works, okay? If you do, give 10 more then. But anyway, I'm not talking about prosperity. I'm saying that he blesses, and it's actually one of the only areas that God says, test me in it. Try me out. See what I can do. And again, it's not dollar for dollar. I'm not saying anything like that. What he does is he uses you, and he uses your giving in ways that you never saw. So you should be giving. The goal of a church is to inspire you to, if you enjoy what we're doing, if you believe in what we're doing, if you think that you can be used here to expand the kingdom, to reach people, then we'd love for you to give here. We'd love for you to be a part of that. But don't give just because you feel like you have to, because someone tells you. As a matter of fact, if someone tells you to give, don't go back to that church, okay? Don't go back. Because I want to read here in 2 Corinthians, because a lot of people are just confused about this giving thing, and it becomes this like weird thing that we don't talk about in church, when actually you're missing out on a whole lot of blessings when you don't give. There's a whole lot of stuff that God has for you. So let me just read in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and let Paul kind of say it here. Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop. But the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. You must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. If you feel bad, don't give. For God loves a person who gives cheerfully. And God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. That's the promise. That's the promise about generosity. So again, don't let some misunderstandings about church or maybe where you've been confuse you on the fact that God wants to bless you, and it's done through giving. And that's giving of all different kinds. It's not just money, it's time, it's your abilities, it's kindness, it's all of these things that we can give. So again, we have to be ready for what God is going to do. And we have to be willing for what God is going to do. And so I'm calling you to, inviting you on this journey with me to see what God can do here. And we've already got to see this play out. Whenever we first started meeting as a core team, we had some chairs that we had borrowed from a church, and they were like, hey, we need those chairs back. And we're like, oh, man, we're about to meet this next Sunday. But and a lot of you probably didn't know this. And so we were having some conversations, and somebody heard about it. Someone in our church said, how much? Let us know. Order them right now. And so the chairs you're actually sitting in right now, we were able to order and get in before our first meeting. So we had chairs. Let me tell you how this works. This is the miracle. This is what I'm talking about. So when we got to move into here, they had 300 chairs here, and we had our own, so we didn't need them. So we got a chance to give them away to some other Wesleyan churches. And so I want to show you this picture right here. Okay, this is Resurrección de la Vida right here. Okay, I don't know that I said that exactly right, but it is an awesome Spanish church that is in downtown Tulsa. They've been praying for a year for chairs. They've been saving as much money as they could for chairs. They were asking for 175 chairs, and we were able to call them and say, "Come get them." And they were crying. They were thanking us. They could not believe what God had done. But that is because someone decided to give to our church to get what we needed. Okay, that's the miracle. That's what I'm talking about in God's hands. That's what happens. And so I just want those stories to keep going, and I want you to be a part of that. And so this boy decided to give everything that he had, and God took his little and he turned it into a miracle. And just know that's the same. This boy, we are the little boy. Like, we're not different than him. Everything that we have, God can multiply. And so that's the point of this story, because the focus is not on what was given, but who it was given to. That's the whole point of the story. Okay, the focus, yes, this little boy is awesome. I'm glad that he did that. You know, the disciples served it. They went out. They did. The focus is Jesus. That's what changes this story. In his hands, miraculous things can happen. It says that he broke the bread and he just kept giving it and giving it and giving it. And there was so much that they took up 12 basketfuls of leftovers. That's incredible. Not only in his hands is it enough, it's more than enough when we give it over to Jesus. He's like, y'all want leftovers? Here, I'm going to make this into a goose. Take this home and have it later. That's what Jesus brings to the table. Like, when we allow him to take over, it's not just enough. It's more than enough. Everybody full? All right, we got some more if you want seconds. Come back while I'm preaching. Go get you some. Like, that's who Jesus is. That's what he brings whenever we trust him and allow him to have it. I would say it this way: in God's hands, 2 + 5 = 5,000 plus. That's his math. It's not our math. 2 + 5 is 7 to us, but that's not to God. So let me just say this: if you're, in college, or if we have any kids in here, if you miss a problem, just say it's God's math and let them take it up with him. So God's math is different than ours. It doesn't work the same. In us, that was like, if we would have taken that meal, it would have been like, okay, we can probably feed about 7 of the 10,000. So, but Jesus said, let me have it. And we're going to feed everybody. And we're going to have more than enough. That's what happens when we put things in the hands of Jesus and say, you do what I can't do. You perform. You just use me and do whatever you can do to reach people. And here's the crazy thing. I love what he says when they say, hey, we need to send these people to go get food. You feed them. And if you look at it just at face value, it's kind of mean. You feed them. What you bugging me for? I'm Jesus. I got stuff to do. Like it seems like he's just kind of a little bit condescending. But he already knew what he was going to do, the Bible says. He wanted to bring them in on it. You got to understand the disciples were just on a ministry tour. They'd been healing and they've been going off and doing crazy things. And God's like, hey, Jesus is like, hey, you have the power. You feed them. He wants to invite them on the journey. He didn't need that boy's lunch. He didn't need the disciples to serve it. He's Jesus. He could have done whatever he wanted to. He could have turned all the rocks into bread in that moment and been like, grab some. Get your own Happy Meal. Everybody gets one. Like, no toys right now, okay? We're busy, or whatever. But he invited them. Come be a part of the miracle. You be a part of it. You experience this thing. So it begs the question, and again, this is not to convict. This is to let the Spirit work inside of you the way that he does. What are you walking around with that's being wasted in your hands, but could be multiplied by Jesus' hands? Money, talent, time, kindness, you name it. What little are you holding back that God could turn into a miracle? Again, and hear my heart, I'm not prosperity preaching. I'm not telling you that you do and then God has to act. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying his promise is that he will give you everything that you need. Okay? That's the promise from him. And that boy, he could have kept the meal to himself. He could have said, nah, I brought my lunch. Y'all are stupid. I knew we was going to be out here a while, And shout out to the mom that packed the boy's lunch. It sounds like no one else did. Can I give a mom a shout out? Because you know what happened. The boy heard what was going on. He's like, Mom, I want to go. She's like, hold on, let me pack you a lunch. Come here, buddy. And he's like, no, everybody's running right now. I got to go. She's like, no, come here. Nathaniel, Jebediah, come here. Let's see, or whatever. Yeah, let me pack your lunch. He's like, okay, Mom, I got to go. Now come give me a kiss. She's like, oh, I hate you. And then he's like, oh, I'm so glad I had this, right? So shout out to the moms that keep it together. Y'all do it. And dads. Dads do it too. But I'm telling you right now, I would forget everything. So I'm so grateful for my wife. So way to go, Karen. You did it. He could have kept that. This is my lunch. But he said, no, here you go. And think about the story that he got to tell for the rest of his life. It wasn't about him. It was about Jesus. But he gets to say, hey, I don't know. Like, I just gave him my lunch, and he just started breaking it. And then he did it 17,000 more times. And I was just like, what? How is this happening? And, it's like, the handkerchief thing where he just pulls it out. He was doing that. I don't know. Like, imagine the story. And one of these days, in the very, very far future, I'm going to stop talking about Simple Church and how it started. But I'm just telling you right now, I'm experiencing this, and this is nothing about me. There's a bunch of people who just came and said, here's what we got. And because of that, we were able to renovate the building cash money. Because people were like, here, let's do this. Let's make this happen. And what I want is for you to experience the miraculous in your life. I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking you to serve because I think that's what we should do as a family. And I don't know if I said this earlier, but there's cards right there. And at this point, if the Spirit is moving you to fill them out, stop listening to me and do that. It's more important. Honestly, it's more important. We have been blessed with so many kids. I've said it before. You guys are a baby factory. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep the Marvin Gaye strong. I don't know what's happening, but just whatever's happening is happening. We appreciate it. We are growing, but we're already talking about having to move rooms and add rooms because we're busting the seams. Here's the problem. We don't have people for other rooms, though. We just have enough people to cover where we're at right now. And so God needs you. He wants to use you here already in that. And my prayer is that I always have the mindset of that little boy. It may not be much, but here it is, God. You do. You whatever you do. Because it's not much for me, but here you go. Again, I'm not, there's no reason for me to have a church. It's hilarious. I mean, it's just one of those things like, why? But that's what God does, man. That's what he does. He does ridiculous. He does can you imagine being there and just like what is he doing? But that's what happens when he is in control. So help us to always think and be like that little boy. Here you go. I also think it's really important, and I'll kind of end with this. It says that it fed everyone, and that was just the men. 5,000 was just the men. You see, back in that day, women and children just didn't have the same value as men. It's just how the day was. Women could not testify in court. They had to have a man come in to testify. I know it seems crazy to us now, but they just weren't valued and they didn't count back then. That's why they weren't listed. That's why they didn't list how many people. But what I think is really interesting is because this boy was willing to give everything that he had. There was enough for the people who counted and the people who didn't count. Every single person was satisfied and happy and full, and life was given to them that day. In church, that is exactly where we should be. There is a world full of people who don't count, who've been discounted by every single person. When we give our gifts and abilities, when we give our time and our money, when we give things, what we do is we give enough for them to count, for them to be satisfied. That's the goal. If all we do is come and meet in this awesome building with all of you awesome people, that's great. But man, what a waste of an opportunity. Let's go out. Let's satisfy everyone. Let's bring joy to everyone. Let's bring everything that they need to them so that we all experience Jesus the same way. That's the whole point. That's the whole goal. At the beginning of the message, I said that Jesus came and through this story wanted to share the message that you are useful and you are wanted. But there's a caveat to that. There's an asterisk, if you will. You're useful if you're willing and available. We play the part in that. We have a choice about what we do. And I'm just telling you right now, my hope and my prayer for every single person that comes through Simple Church is that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. Something that they never imagined they could do, but in God's hand, it's multiplied, and it's just like, wow, I can't believe you. I want to hear these stories over and over again. I can't believe I can't believe that I don't know what I'm doing, but here's this. I have so many people already approaching me about ministries and about ideas that God's laying on them, and that's not surprising to me. The Spirit is moving here. I'm telling you, this is going to be a unique experience because I think we have a lot of people who are ready and willing and tired of being on the sidelines and tired of playing the Christian game and tired of being a consumer and tired of just sitting for an hour and then walk away. I think we have a bunch of people who are like, let's actually go be the church. And I'm excited about that, okay? And I want to invite you, again, not condemn you, not beg you, not force you. I want to invite you to be on this journey with us and see what he can do.